YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be showing y'all how I created this bucket hat, cowhide print bucket hat from scratch using some fabric I found at Hobby Lobby. So to be honest, I freehand drew my pattern that I'm going to be using in this video, but I will leave a bucket hat pattern template that I found on Pinterest in the description box below in case you do want to attempt to make one yourself. So you're going to start off by taking your printed pattern and putting it on top of your fabric so that we can begin cutting out each of our pieces. I like to pin my pattern onto my fabric so that when I'm cutting, it's nice and neat and everything just kind of stays together. It doesn't move around. It just makes it easier for you, especially when you're cutting in a circle. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the next piece. So this piece right here that I'm cutting out is the brim of our hat. So you are going to need 4 pieces of fabric for the brim. So we're gonna start with like the crescent shape, and you need 2 pieces for each crescent shape because we want the brim to show the pattern on both sides. So on the bottom side and the top side. So we're gonna sew those 2 pieces together, flip them inside out, fill them with that fiber, the coat filling, and you'll be able to see that in the video, but it's important that you cut out 4 of those pieces. And what I do is just fold the fabric in half, and then I just cut out that crescent shape twice, pretty much. So the next piece we are going to be cutting out is the body of the hat, pretty much. And this is the most important part. It's very important that when you're sewing all the pieces together, that you make sure this piece is facing the correct way. Because I sewed it upside down, so it kind of threw my measurements off, so pay attention to that. The ends of this piece are slanted, and the slant creates the bucket hat effect. So yeah, that's why it's very important to get this part right the first time so that you don't have to finesse it like I had to. But if you do end up messing up, you'll be able to fix it, because I was. You're just gonna have to trim some excess fabric off. But yeah, right here is where I messed up. This top part right here should be matching with the top hat circle piece when you sew them together. So the smaller side of the circle, or the smaller opening of the circle, should be facing upwards, not downwards. All right, so once you pin the ends of that piece together, we're gonna sew a straight stitch line down. I'm just gonna do a test line first, or a test run first, just to make sure that I have my width correct here. And that's why it's important to leave yourself an inch or 2 for seam allowance too, just in case you do mess up, because it's easy to fix something that you made too big, but it's literally impossible to fix something that you made too small, or that you cut out too small. right, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Just one straight stitch down though. All right, and once you complete that step, you're gonna wanna just toss that to the side for now. And we will move on to the brim. So I found this this like coat lining stuffing at Walmart, and I decided to use that on my brim just to create the fluff effect for my brim. So I didn't want it to be too flat. I'm not using heavy duty fabric, so I don't want the brim to be like a little flappy. I kind of want it to be puffed up a little bit, so that's why I'm adding this. So this is optional, to be honest. You don't really have to put this on there. But if you're trying to go for the similar style, then I advise you to add some stuffing. And you don't need a whole lot either, so. So you're gonna wanna make sure that the right sides of the fabric are kissing when you're pinning, just so when you turn it inside out, you don't see any kind of seams at all, or like the line stitching. So this part right here that I'm actually pinning down right now, like putting pins in, is the part that we're going to be sewing. I pinned the whole piece just to keep everything nice and neat together for when I'm sewing. So pinning the whole thing is optional. It just kind of keeps everything together nicely and makes sure nothing moves around when you're sewing. So the wide part of the crescent is what we are going to be sewing, not the small C, the big C. And here I'm just cutting off excess fabric, just making sure everything is all neat, or as neat as I can get it. Honestly, telling or giving directions while watching a video is so hard. It's harder than I expected. All right, and here I am doing the same thing to the second piece. So you're gonna wanna have two crescent shapes, because when we sew them both together, it's going to make a complete circle instead of a half circle. So I'm just measuring out my filling here again. Making sure everything lines up nice and neat. It's very important for the finished product, to make sure all your cuts are nice and neat. All right, so I'm just pinning the ends together so that I can sew the two pieces together here. We're gonna be doing another straight stitch line. So you don't really do any fancy kind of lines, just straight stitches. So this is very beginner friendly. And if you didn't have a sewing machine, instead of sewing a straight line right here, you just put your glue there, and like, I don't know how long it'd have to take to dry, probably quite some time, depending on your fabric, I guess. And I'm just cutting off excess string and fabric as I go, so I don't have to do too much at the end. So we're gonna do that same step on the other side so that our circle is complete. Or our brim. It honestly looks like a steering wheel cover right now. Trust the process. All right, so this is the part that I actually messed up on. I'm pinning the brim and the main body part wrong right here. So do not do what I'm doing. Instead of pinning the top, as you see me doing right here, I should have been pinning the bottom half, because the top half should be pinned together with the circle top hat part. So here I am just throwing my measurements off, making everything harder for me to finesse. Like, damn, I wish I wasn't in a rush. So please don't rush through this. Take your time. Patience is a virtue. They don't just say that just to say it. They mean that shit. All right, and when you begin to sew these pieces together, please take your time doing it. Sewing in a circle is a very tedious process, so don't zoom through this. Take your time, because this kind of brings everything together. I just got this sewing machine. It's actually a brother serger, and honestly it has made sewing so much more enjoyable for me. It makes everything 10 times easier, because it kind of cuts my excess fabric off as I go, and it finishes the seam for me. It just makes everything look so much more professional. So yeah, if you are a beginner and you are looking for a serger, I would suggest trying a brother serger machine. It's very like hands-on, and it's easy to understand and figure it out all on your own. Because I figured out how to do this without a manual, because I bought this off of somebody, so it's not like brand new or anything. Yeah, here I am just cutting off my excess fabric, since I sewed the main body part of the hat upside down. I had to cut off some of my brim because it just didn't end up fitting in the end. But so here I'm just doing a straight stitch down to close that off. And I'm just fixing anything that's that doesn't look right or that needs fixing. My hair keeps getting stuck on my needles, and honestly that's very dangerous, but I was too focused to even notice. Once that step is done, we are pretty much almost finished here. We just have to put the top hat part for our circle to close in our hat. Pinning is so tedious, but it's very important to make sure that you use as many pins as you need. I wouldn't just like put like 2 or 3 pins. Make sure you pin around completely. Like, don't leave no gaps out or anything. Make sure everything is closed off completely. That just lessens your margin for error. Once you pin the circle together with the main body part, you're gonna wanna turn it inside out before you start sewing. Do not sew it until you turn it inside out, because you will ruin the hat, to be honest. Well, actually, I don't think you would really ruin the hat. You'll just be able to see your seam, and we don't want the seam to show. We want the seam to be invisible. So here I am sewing in a circle again, taking my time. Oh yeah, make sure you take your pins out as you go. Do not jam your sewing machine, please. Been there, done that. Unless your sewing machine is like a super heavy duty sewing machine, because some sewing machines can just sew right over that shit. All right, and this is our final product. Just gonna cut out all the excess string just so nothing hangs out or anything. And then if you end up having any open spots, just go back and close those up. And here we have our finished cowhide bucket hat. Alright, y'all, thanks so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.